What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I got a big episode today. Some more Chris Sims ranking coming on the episode. Man, I've just grown such a respect and appreciation for Chris Sims. The more I listen to him talk, and the more credibility I've seen about his past rankings, and the more publicity he gets. And I really, I kind of wish I would have paid close attention to his rankings last year because he was very close on a lot of guys. His safety rankings were pretty darn good. He had Antoine Winfield, Julian Blackman, some of his top three, and those guys had good years. I think, did he have Grant Delpit too? But last year's cornerback ranking, C.J. Henderson number one, which that looked to be just about dead on. A.J. Terrell number two, and just that gave me a great appreciation because I was a guy that was very high on A.J. Terrell too, and people take too much from these championship games because everyone watches. He was burnt in the championship game, but he was going against Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I mean, really just a nightmare matchup, and they were putting him on an island one-on-one. Like Chris Sims said, he was right in his hip pocket most of the game. So it wasn't even like he was, really just getting cooked. He was, right there to make a play. Joe Burrow was just being Joe Burrow and putting the ball in a perfect location. So, yeah, we can start with, breaking down his cornerback rankings. Marco Wilson from Florida. Marco Wilson, sadly, is going to be, might be remembered very well by some as the guy that threw the shoe and potentially cost him the LSU game. But Marco Wilson, a very talented guy that's played some great football for several years at Florida. Haven't dove deep into his film, but he's a guy that's really played well and has done a good job in the Florida secondary. Pretty athletic guy that has a chance to be pretty good, and so he comes in at number 6. Number 5, Paulson Adebo. Paulson Adebo is a guy that, if you go back and watch my top 5 cornerback draft rankings, Paulson Adebo is a guy I had in my top 5. He has great length, really good ball skills, and closes and just does a great job of making tackles. And I was glad Chris Sims talked about him because he's a guy that for some is just really just shot down the rankings. Opted out this year in 2020, but a guy that, for 2 years, especially 2018 and 2019, had, several interceptions. He had one play against Cal with a one-armed interception. Just, tremendous athleticism, size, length, kind of, and pretty good hips too. So that's why he comes in at number 5, and Paulson Adebo, outstanding corner that, he's a guy that I could see will likely get drafted higher than most people are predicting. So, number 4, he had Aaron Robinson from UCF. Aaron Robinson, guy I haven't really watched a lot of tape on, but several of these UCF DBs people really like a lot. Richie Grant, I think, is a solid player at the safety position. He's a guy was pretty much solid in all facets of his game, whether that's, coming up against the run, dropping in deep coverage, playing a little, I think played a little man-to-man, and then, Tay Gowan, another guy from UCF that opted out. So most people just a fan of all the guys in the UCF secondary, and Chris Sims likes Aaron Robinson. He comes in at number 4. Number 3, maybe a bit of surprise to some, is Patrick Surtain, who's a guy that people have mostly as the number 1, but yeah, just he likes Surtain. It's not a put down to Surtain. It's just he likes these other 2 guys better, and he likes the number 1 guy a lot. But Patrick Surtain, the main concern is he at the Pro Day 4.42, which he claims it'll be a 4.52 at the normal regular combine time. I don't know if it's .01 of a difference. I think it might be a little. I think Surtain would probably be like a high 4.4 instead of a 4.42 at the combine. But in 4.4, high 4.4 is a pretty very solid time, but his point being, when you go against some of the faster wide receivers like Tyreek Hill and Brandon Cooks, and I don't know who else, some of the guys like maybe like a Sammy Watkins, some of the guys that run in the 4.3s, Odell Beckham, some of the guys that run low 4.4s, 4.3s, it might be a tougher matchup. But his point being, if he goes against some of the slower, bigger receivers, it should be just a lockdown day. So, but yeah, Patrick Surtain, so fundamentally sound though, and he acknowledged that, which is fair to say. So, and then number 2, probably the biggest surprise on this list is even more so than Marco Wilson or Adebo or even Aaron Robinson for that matter, because a lot of those guys weren't even in top 5 talks, is Tyson Campbell, cornerback from Georgia. Now, Tyson Campbell is a guy that I've kind of fallen into the trap. A lot of the media and some of the analysts I have listened to don't have Tyson Campbell in their top 5, but when you watch the tape, this guy is just super athletic. He was a former 5-star prospect, actually a former teammate of Surtain, so they had 2 5-star corners in their secondary. Tyson Campbell, yeah, he really jumps off the tape with athleticism. And similar to A.J. Terrell, he had a tough game in the big stage against Bama, but he was right in the hip pocket guarding Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. Actually did a decent job. The one play he got burned, he actually fell down. But yeah, Tyson Campbell, when you watch, a lot of teams really didn't throw at him. And, and when they did, the receiver, if they did make the catch, he was right there, and it was a tough catch. And he does have pretty smooth hips and or greasy hips, as he would say. And he's had a very solid career at Georgia. They had some pretty good corners, so he didn't always play like a ton. Didn't always get like the most snaps. But Tyson Campbell is a guy. I think this is a projection that if he gets keeps improving and gets better and better, could have a chance to be a solid to good NFL corner. And that's so I think he's going with a bit of projection, and he's just going with great hip fluidity and a great athlete, and a guy that wants to come up and make tackles and has the ability to make hits as well. So yeah, that was one thing he emphasized, that the loose hips, greasy hips, athleticism, ability to stay in some of the best receivers that you cover, stay in their hip pocket. So that was those were some of the factors that were very that he emphasized very much so, and he thought that Tyson Campbell really fit that mold. So that's why he comes in at number 2. Number 1, Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. And to be honest, I can't really necessarily disagree with this. Caleb Farley came in at my number 1 in the summer, but as of lately, I've kind of had him as number 2, just because just simply because we didn't see him play this year. So I was hoping he would kind of take that next step in his game and become even more polished in some facets of his game. But just Chris Sims called him one of the best corners he's seen. Has like a higher grade on him than Jalen Ramsey. Says just his ability to stay stride for side with receivers, his ball skills, and just some of the best hips, actually that he saw of any player in this cornerback draft class. So that's why he comes in at number 1 for Chris Sims, and did a great job going against Chase Claypool. That was one of his main matchups in college, and did a pretty good job covering him. And just the Miami game, I'm sure he watched tape of that game. He was just made some just incredible plays on the ball, and it's one thing to stay, stride for stride with a guy, but then can you also turn around and make plays on the ball? So I think those two things are what's really stood out to me as far as Caleb Farley. And then, to Chris Sims, he just has as high a grade on him since really going back to Jalen Ramsey a few years back, which is very high praise, and it kind of goes with why he has him number 1. So, that rounds out his top 6. So we'll recap. Number 6, Marco Wilson. Number 5, Paulson Adebo. Number 4, Aaron Robinson. Number 3, Patrick Surtain. Number 2, Tyson Campbell. And number 1, Caleb Farley. So next I want to get you guys the safety rankings. But I think like I've said, I think Chris Sims' rankings are so fun because he doesn't really go off too much of what he's here, and doesn't really look at the national media rankings. That's something that I'm trying to avoid. I just go based on what you've seen on the tape. Go with who you think is the best based on your own assessment, based on your own evaluation of the tape, and and you just stay true with who you like. Yeah, so I really love his safety rankings. It's made me really go back and really like a few of these guys a lot more. To be fair, the first couple guys I mentioned I didn't watch on tape, but his top three were all guys that I had considered in my top three, and got all guys I love. So, yeah, we'll get straight to it here. So Sean Davis comes in at number one. Sean Davis, when I watch more tape on him, I love his ability to come up and just make hits. He's a incredible tackler. He's a super tough dude, and that's one thing he emphasized is that his ability to come up and make hits, and he values a safety that has no regard for his body, and just doesn't really care how hard of a doesn't really care about his body taking damage from a hit. And Sean Davis really fits that mold. He was a key part of the Florida secondary that, the last couple of years has featured Marco Wilson, Sean Davis himself, C.J. Henderson. So, yeah, and he's even shown ability to make plays in coverage. Had a tremendous interception against Auburn in 2019, and just a guy that has been just rock solid in the Florida secondary. Played pretty well at the pro day. And so, that's why Chris Sims really values Sean Davis. And not a lot of people really have him necessarily likely in their top five, but he really values Sean Davis' ability to come up and hit, maybe likely be probably a true strong safety, could play even some free safety in the NFL. So that's why he comes in at number 5 on his list. Number 4 is our Darius Washington from TCU, and this guy is just pretty simply a savage for TCU. The guy has really no regard for his body. Another thing that Chris Sims outlined, the guy is just not afraid to get run over. He makes some pretty good plays on the ball, and is just kind of a psycho as far as coming up and hitting it. Only 5'7", and all the comparisons to the Honey Badger have really been thrown out there. Yeah, a lot of people just love what our Darius Washington brings to the table, and a lot of people thought this would be Trevin Moehrig, but our Darius Washington comes at number 5. Sims loves what he brings to the table and loves his ability and his toughness. I think he thinks that translates well to the NFL, and has a super high grade overall on Washington and his ability to cover. So that's why he comes in as number 4 spot. Number 3 is another guy I love and did a film breakdown on, is Javon Holland. And, Holland's versatility is just outstanding, and hopefully that translates to the NFL. So I think he could play deep free safety. I don't think – it depends on – if you draft him first round, I don't think you're going to draft him simply to play a nickelback corner. But, yeah, Holland's ability just to make tackles and his strength, and I love that he gets off of blocks and just is so willing to come up and make hits, and has pretty underrated ball skills as far as, and has shown, like I showed on tape, he shows a great ability to cover man-to-man. So Javon Holland comes in number 3. Number 2 is Elijah Molden, and Elijah Molden, one of the best open field tacklers in this draft class. Molden was just such a key part of the Washington defense's success. And he's a guy that played some nickel corner, played some deep safety, and just a beast for Washington. And the guy comes in at number 2. Number 1, Andre Cisco from Syracuse. Now, Andre Cisco, I've listened to a few breakdowns and said he's kind of a boomer bust candidate, but what I see and what Chris Sims saw is his ability just to make plays, such a rangy, talented safety that's so fluid, and just a great job of coming up and making hits, a great open field tackler too, and just his he has just top-notch athleticism, and made some just awesome plays covering deep for Syracuse, and is a guy that's been a lot of people have discussed, but not a lot of people have really put him as number 1, and I see no problem with him putting him at number 1. Tore his ACL this year, but if he recovers back to close to what he was, I don't see a problem having him number one. And when I went back, watch his tape, I couldn't really find a lot of flaws in the guy's game except for, maybe, blowing a couple times, maybe blew coverage, and then, maybe missed a couple open field tacklers, but he's a very solid open field tackler for the most part and shows a very willingness to come up and make hits. So, that's why Andre Sisco comes in at his number one safety. So to recap, number 5, Sean Davis from Florida. Number 4, Ardarius Washington from TCU. Number 3, Javon Holland from Oregon. Number 2, Elijah Molden from Washington. And number 1, Andre Sisco from Syracuse. So, the most recent one was the wide receiver rankings, and I agree with it for the most part. Has a couple interesting names. At number 6, Terrence Marshall. Terrence Marshall, I very much agree with this, that Terrence Marshall should be in the top 5 to 6 receivers in this draft class, even though he comes in at number 6 ahead of some of the notable names that were left off, like Rondale Moore, Rashawn Bateman, Elijah Moore, guys that I really liked. But Terrence Marshall, what really stands out is not only is he an athletic guy who is a decent route runner, but his ability to make contested catches and is very fluid for his size. He's not a small receiver by any means, and could be a true outside receiver in the NFL. So he comes in at number 6 and had a big game this year against Missouri. So, Kadarius Toney comes in at number 5. Kadarius Toney with a very, very big year for Florida this year. Dominated in the Alabama game, and this is a guy that just cuts on a dime. You wonder if the guy even has any knees. He's just such a quick, shifty receiver, and his ability to get open is arguably maybe the best of anyone in this draft, and really took another step in his improvement this year in the 2020 season, and was part of a high potent offense for the Florida Gators. And as a guy that really could go first round, likely mid to late first rounder. So Kadarius Toney comes in at number 5 from the University of Florida. At number 5, this is where I had some disagreement. He had Jalen Waddle. And, the argument for Jalen Waddle is he's not, maybe not as refined a receiver as people think. But I kind of can see where that's coming from, I guess, because he might not, is he the best route runner in this draft? No. Is he maybe, I don't know, he's not the most, physical receiver. He's not the biggest receiver. But the bottom line is Jalen Waddle's versatility and his speed is just kind of such a rare commodity, especially, in almost every year in and year out in almost every draft class, and his ability to make plays in the punt return, the kick return game, and just the world class speed and the production to really match it. People debate Henry Ruggs. People compare him to Henry Ruggs, so they're likely high 4.2, low 4.3 guys. Ruggs actually was a 4.2 guy, but I think Waddle was even a more refined receiver, and you saw that Ruggs was solid in his NFL rookie campaign. So if Waddle's even better and more refined receiver than Ruggs and more of a finished product, then the ceiling you got to think would be pretty high for a guy that's that fast and is not really super skinny too. And then has shown ability to have monster games and make contested catches. So number 3 is Dyami Brown from UNC. And Chris Sims just loved this guy's deep playability and his speed and ability to create separation. But going back and watching Dyami Brown, it's it's a shame, like Chris Sims said, that they didn't use him in a variety of different ways, because they love to throw it deep to him. And he was a great big play deep receiver that's going to likely have success in the outside, but it's too bad they didn't, get him involved in some of the shorter passing game as far as slants and curls and use him more. But bottom line, Dyami Brown made plays this year. He made plays last year. Had some great stats to match with a very great tape of him burning a lot of corners. So Dyami Brown, he saw with his speed and ability to go get the deep ball. He has him come in at number 3 and really projects Diami Brown to be a phenomenal wide receiver. And I think he even said he was like a top 10 pick. So, yeah. So, yeah, the more Diami Brown's a guy that most people don't even have in their top 10, but as a guy that's really grown on me the more I've watched of him. So, he comes in at number 3 on the list. Number 2, Devontae Smith from Alabama. And Devontae Smith, he said, was very close with the number 1 receiver in his rankings, Jamar Chase. Devontae Smith, just route running ability is almost second to none. Is a guy that has just put in so much time in becoming a tremendous route running receiver, even though he said size wasn't really an issue because it never really came up on tape and never showed that his size and strength was a problem with him trying to get separation on different receivers. So, yeah, he comes in at number 2 and said it was close to his number 1, Jamar Chase. And he really likes what Devontae Smith brings to the table. And, I think he'll be a tremendous NFL wide receiver. So, Devontae Smith from Alabama comes in at number 2, and then the number 1, Jamar Chase from LSU. Jamar Chase is just an absolute beast and had a monster year in 2019 with Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. He's a guy that could really play on the outside, 6 foot, 200 some pounds, and has just such a great job of getting open even when he's pressed. And not really a lot of weaknesses in Jamar Chase's game, and he's a guy that's going to make someone happy. I think he has a very high ceiling, could be a very dominant wide receiver in the NFL. So, yeah, if you watch that 2019 tape, it's hard you really have to nitpick to come up with any flaws and weaknesses in Jamar Chase's game. I read like one scouting report that said maybe not the best athlete, which I think is ridiculous because you obviously have to be a pretty darn good athlete to get separation from SEC corners like Noah Igbenogany from Auburn and to put up almost 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns at wide receiver in the SEC. So, yeah, kind of a ridiculous take there. But, yeah, like Jamar Chase and like Cisco, I think why he has him number 1 because the athleticism just jumps off the tape, and you're really nitpicking if you find weaknesses. And, with Andre Cisco, they called him kind of a boomer bust, but I don't really see any necessarily signs of a bust. I mean, kind of, when you're that athletic, you can kind of take some risks. It's kind of like the Justin Herbert argument really last year. Like, he was so athletic that maybe some of his bad throws were just kind of a belief that he could make the throw and not really factoring in that he was just, not a great passer and couldn't necessarily make the throw. It's just because, he believes he could. Same with Justin Fields. A lot of the scrambling and stuff that led to mistakes was just his trust in his athleticism and ability to make plays. So, yeah, Jamar Chase, I would have loved to see him play this year. I saw some reps of him one-on-one, Derek Stingley, in the summer, and he looked pretty good, but hopefully he's stayed in shape. I know a lot of guys that opted out have stayed in pretty good shape from what I've heard. It's you hope they're not, partying or, doing, eating bad and avoiding working out. And so, but Jamar Chase, yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth. I think I might have Jamar Chase as my number 1, but I got Jalen Waddle right there and Devontae Smith. You can't really – it's one of those things you can't really go wrong with those 3 and even Diami Brown. So really got 4 guys you can't go wrong with. Even Kadarius Toney, Terrence Marshall I think will be great players. Bateman, Rondell Moore were notable names. Elijah Moore from Ole Miss who ran a good 40 times, another guy too. And yeah, great wide receiver class. I'm anxious to see Chris Sims' defensive line or edge rankings. That comes out Thursday, I believe. So, but yeah, I've been doing some interior defensive linemen, so some of the D tackles in this class, and Asi Adigizua, I think that's how you say his name. Comes into my number 1 from UCLA. I think this guy has really been under the radar. This is a guy that just, with really long arms, just does a good job of just pushing the offensive lineman back and was just so disruptive in the middle of that UCLA defensive line, and offenses really had a tough time, and he caused a lot of quarterbacks to have to, scramble out, and did a pretty good job when he went against Elijah Vera Tucker. But he is a very dominant player, and will make someone happy. Levi Onwuzurike is another defensive tackle that I really like. He was double teamed a lot, but just, like Asa from UCLA, pushed the offensive lineman back, and just, Hughes is just such a powerful guy, plays with good leverage. And that's why he came in at my number 2, Onwuzurike from Washington. Dude is just, dude's a beast. Him and Asa Odighizuwa. I think this interior defensive line class is better than it gets credit for. And, my number 3 was NC State's Aleem McNeil. McNeil just does such a good job of being quick and shedding blocks at 300 and some pounds, and pretty good strength. Didn't really have major production, but it's because he got penetration so quick that a lot of times it guided the way for another guy to make tackle. And McNeil is really a freak for his size, and plays with good leverage like Onwuzurike and Odighizuwa from UCLA. So I really like what I saw from McNeil and NC State. And these are my top 3, but man, it's kind of almost interchangeable. And Christian Barmore is a guy that I was higher on from Bama, but had some games early on where he was kind of just okay, but really dominant towards the end of the season, which is good sign that he shined bright in the bigger stages. So Christian Barmore is another guy to watch out for, and likely could be a first-round pick. But I have first-round grades on those first 3 guys that I named: McNeil, Onwuzurike, and Asa Odighizuwa. And I just really value a guy that can just be powerful when he's double teamed and shed blocks quickly. McNeil brings that to the table, and that's the thing. I watch, defensive tackle is really not about necessarily roughing or getting after the passer on every play, or shedding blocks. It's just, can you just get an initial surge and push the offensive line back and really disrupt the offense and really plug up a lot of holes inside that allow others to come in and make tackles and really shut down the run game. And that's something that I really value with my defensive tackles. That's why Onwuzurike, Odighizuwa, McNeil really stood out. And Christian Barmore, I like too. I'm going to have to watch some more film. I watched him play a lot live because I watched a lot of Alabama games. But Marvin Wilson. I haven't really came together with a 5th prospect, but Marvin Wilson is a guy I like his strength, but is not a very super quick lineman. But he could be a solid player in the NFL just because he's so darn strong, and his size, ability to plug holes and really push people back. Maybe could get down in weight and try to become a little more quicker, but if he can't, maybe just I don't know. I guess his size probably would be okay, but Marvin Wilson, another notable one. Pull up some of the list. Davion Nixon too is another notable guy from Iowa. He's a pretty strong guy. But like I said, he doesn't really show a demonstration to get off blocks or really get a big pushback. Jay Tufele from USC, another notable. But I kind of just wanted to touch on those 4 and even throw those 4 or 5 guys, 5, 6 guys, and kind of just touch on that. So those are some of the notable defensive tackle prospects in the for the 2021 draft. So today is Ohio State's Pro Day. I'm really excited to see Justin Fields throw. Literally want to see Tommy Togiai. Okay, that's another D tackle I should mention. Togiai was very disruptive in the Clemson game, and tremendous job in that game. So I'd really like to see what he does in some of the drills today. And it should be fun at Ohio State's Pro Day. And LSU's Pro Day is coming up too. So I'll get to see Jamar Chase a little more and Terrence Marshall. So and Zach Wilson looked really good throwing at his Pro Day. Did a tremendous job of making some throws on the run. And really like what I've seen out of Zach Wilson, and I'll have no problem putting him as my number 3 ranked quarterback. I'm still sticking with Fields and Lawrence as 1 and 2, and Mac Jones is really getting a lot of hype lately because with the 49ers in the recent trade, it sounds like they're locked in at taking Mac Jones at 3, and I really thought that Justin Fields would be going at the 3 spot because I saw him working out with at Exos, working out with Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers offensive coordinator. So I really thought that Fields would likely be the number 3 pick, but it sounds like Mac Jones is going to be the pick there at number 3. And, Mac Jones, the more and more I hear, I really questioned, his athleticism, but I mean, running a 4.8, 4.9, and he was a little better, had a little better mobility in the pocket than I saw, but like I talked to my dad, it's really hard to, truly get a gauge on Mac Jones just because he never had pressure in the pocket. So you're going on truly based off of projection. Like I think he does project well in the NFL. I do think he could be a good football player. A lot of people said with everything else good around him, he could be good. But I think he could have success at an average football team. But the 49ers, if he goes there, he'll have elite coaching in Kyle Shanahan. He'll have an improved defense and offense that just dealt with numerous injuries, and he'll be in a chance to have success with Shanahan. So yeah, that'll be one of the interesting storylines at number 3 if the San Francisco 49ers choose to take Mac Jones. And then, the other debate, Chris Sims was on Dan Patrick. Do you take Kyle Pitts or do you take the some of the top receivers? And he said one of the receivers, which I said was interesting because having a valuable tight end like a Travis Kelce, George Kittle is just so crucial to your success and just makes that offense so lethal, especially on like those third and short situations where you kind of just need that tight end underneath to make a big play. That's something Travis Kelce just did time and time again for the Chiefs. But tight end really I think is, if you find an elite one, it is super underrated as far as what it can do and the ability to take your offense to the next level. I think Travis Kelce could likely be the second most, especially with Eric Fisher and Mitch Morris no longer at tackle. You could argue that Travis Kelce is the second most valuable player on the Chiefs football team. So yeah, you get a guy like Kyle Pitts, who if he's anything like Kelce, will just be extremely dangerous. So, but I think I'll wrap it there. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Big Time Football Talk. Until next time, peace.